Hi, I'm Pam Hayes from Hayes Sewing Machine Company. Thank you for joining us again. We're doing one of our creative videos, and today I'm going to do a really nice, fast, quick project. It is called the Tabitha Jane, and it's a tote. It is using 6 fat quarters, and it is reversible, so that's really cool. Basically, the one side, you're going to see, it has one fat quarter, another fat quarter, and then the bottom is another one. And remember, that's 3, so it's reversible, so we're going to have another 3 on the inside, which is great. And then you're also going to use those same fat quarters for doing the handles. Okay? Basically, when we're working with doing this guy, it is a really nice, simple pattern to work with. It's all the instructions are going to be right in the back for you. They'll give you wonderful step-by-step how to cut it out. And let's get started. So basically, with this guy, to have an idea of what's going to be happening, this is going to be the bottom of the bag, and then we have the one top, and then the other top. Now we're going to take and we're going to sew these at 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we're going to make sure your machine's all threaded up, and we're going to stitch, and we're going to be sewing at the 1/2 inch seam, and we're just going to do our basic straight stitch. Alright, so we're just going to line this up, and we want to sew all the way along. Alright, so this is one side that is done, and then we're going to go and do the other side. Remember, 1/2 inch seam allowances. So if you are a quilter, this is going to seem huge. Alrighty. So this is basically what it's going to look like. So it's going to be like that. Alright? So we have the upper, and then what would be the bottom. We're going to give this a press. And I'm going to press it up towards the darker. All right, so now at this point, we're going to fold this in half. Okay, remember this would be the top of the bag. And then we're going to just line up the seam as best we can.
And that's right sides together, right?
That is right sides together. Again, we're going to do the 1/2 inch seam allowance. Alrighty. So I start at the top. We're going to do our back stitch. Sew down. And we're sewing towards the fold. Make sure you backstitch because we know we put a lot of stuff in our tote bags. So we want it to be nice and reinforced. Alrighty. Gonna do the same 1/2 inch seam. And we're gonna sew down. And when we get to the fold, make sure you'll do a little back stitch. All right, now in the pattern, it calls for you to do your 1/2 inch seam allowances, and then she wants you to trim it, or whoever did the pattern instructions, trim it up to about 1/4 inch. If I was doing something a little heavier, like a lightweight denim, you know, something I was kind of modifying the bag, I would probably trim it up. But I'm just going to leave it as it is. If you wanted to trim it up, here you go. I'll trim one side so you can see how to do it. Basically, just take your scissors, line it up, and we're going to trim. There you go. Trim a little bit, and then you can do the same thing on the other side. I did it. There you go. All right. Now, we have 2 handles. So, this is what the handle is going to look like. You're going to have different colors, top and bottom, okay? And when you're working with it, the only thing I did is I did the same. There's a seam there, and I put the same colors for the handles, but you could jazz it up and do whatever you wish. So what you're going to do, we're putting this, we're going to seam on the top. Again, 1/2 inch seam allowances. So 1/2 inch seams, and we're just doing one short side. So this is what we're trying to achieve. A handle that's nice and tall. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing on the other side, its other mate. Okay, now they wanted us to go, and we're going to press that seam open flat. So we're going to press that flat. We're going to do that on both sides. All right, so now we're going to line these up, and we are going to sew them together. I'm just making sure that lines up nicely for the seam, though I don't think you would notice very much if it didn't. You are going to do your 1/2 inch seam allowance, and we're sewing down the long handle sides. Okay, so we're doing the long seam. Right sides together. Half-inch seam allowance. See, I'm not putting a lot of pins in here, but you could if you wanted to. Okay, back stitch, and I cut my seam. All right, same thing on the other side. Again, at this point, you should not be stitching the short ends, just the long sides. Almost done this side. Back stitch. Okay, so the long sides are done. Now, again, they suggest trim it up. And this time I would. That way it's just going to reduce the bulk in the handle a little bit. Alrighty. So, you can probably guess what's going to happen next once I'm done trimming the other side. We're going to turn the handle. And it's not actually going to be that big of a problem because we don't have any stiffening agent in this handle. It's going to be fairly flexible. So turning it, it's not like we have batting or anything real stiff in there. However, the tool that I like to use for turning tubes of fabric is what they call a fast turn. And that is my favorite way of doing it because it's like lickety-split. All right, fast tube, fast turn, 2 parts. The tube, which comes in multiple sizes, and the actual wire, and you'll see how it has a little piglet.
Can I get into that?
Yep, you'll see how it has a little curve. Put my finger behind. Okay, so it has a little wire.
Let me get in a little bit tighter.
Little loop at the end.
There you go.
All right, and it has a sharp kind of pointy on the end, so don't be leaning into it. All right, how this works. You choose the tube, the outside portion, to what will fit down the hole. Okay. So at this point, again, 2 pieces of material, it's great, it'll squish nicely, it's perfect. All right, so now I fold a little bit of the fabric over at the end. I take my wire and I feed it up through the hole and I twist so that little pigtail comes up through the material. Mm-hmm. And then look at that. I'm pulling the wire and I can undo it now because I have something to hold on to. And look at that. It's a miracle.
Woohoo!
And every time I do that, even if I'm doing that in a room by myself, I go, ta-da! Because it's magic. All right. So, fast turns. Awesome. They really do a nice job. Now, back to the handle. We are now going to take and we're going to press it. We're going to take our time and make sure that seam is along the edge. Okay? So we're going to come over and press. Now, a little trick. I like to kind of roll it a little bit, kind of work it with my fingers, okay? And give it a press. Now, depending on the time of year, sometimes my hands are real dry. So I will wet my finger tips. Give myself a little bit more. Make sure your fabric doesn't mind a little bit of water. This is a cotton material, so it's not going to make any difference. But if you're doing this out of your finest velvet, you might want to come up with another option. All right. Just focus a little bit at a time, but see how I want to roll it? I can pick it up and roll it in my hands as well. And let it cool down a little bit so you don't burn your fingers. It's like, I'm good. Alrighty. All right, one side. And then we're going to do the same rolling technique. Add a little bit more water to my hands. Remember, if you're using steam, get your hand out of the way before you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we want everything just to lay as flat as we can possibly get it. Remember, it's going to be the easiest to do it now when the handle is not attached to anything. Alrighty, almost done.
And that would be the advantage of trimming that handle because it's easier to roll that 1/4 inch seam as
Yeah.
opposed to a 1/2 inch seam, right?
Yep. So it's going to make it a little easier. Alrighty. Okay, I think we're done. All right. Now, I top stitched this guy, the other handle. So we're, yep. Okay. I don't know which side of the fabric would be easier for you to see. But basically, it is 1/4 inch I top stitched. Whatever, you know, amount of top stitching you want to do is great. I just try to have it matching the other handle. Why not? Alright, so what I've done is I've kind of moved my needle position all the way over, and I'm using the edge of my foot to the edge of the fabric. And that's close enough. That'll work. Remember, I have a 3-foot rule. If it looks good from 3 feet, don't worry about it. All right, one side done. And now we're going to line it up and do the same on the other side. Alrighty. Now, if you were thinking, if one, you know, this is reversible, and you notice I didn't leave any opening to turn it. If you've made a bag before, you're thinking, you know, tote bag with a lining, you're thinking, Pam hasn't left anything. And you're absolutely right, because that's not how they do this bag. How they're going to do this bag is you do 2 literal bags, and then look what they have you do. They have you press under a 1/2 inch. Mm-hmm. All right, so guess what we're doing on this side? We're going to press under a 1/2 inch. So we're going to press to the wrong side. And we're going to press it down. I'm just eyeballing this. I'm pretty good at eyeballing roughly 1/2 inch. It's a tote bag. If you want to get out your measuring devices, you go. I'm basically turning down the same amount as I turned down on the other one. All right. So we're going to take and we're going to press it down. Okay. Now, what we're going to do here is you're going to have one side facing right side out, the other one wrong side facing out. Because what are we going to do? We are going to just place it inside. You're going to match up the seams. So we're going to match up the seams. I'm going to put a clip in. Okay. And we're just popping it inside. So we take okay. So now, let's see how it's going to go. So at this point, I'm going to just throw a couple of clips in here just to hold it. Alrighty. So, you're thinking, well, that's great. That's pretty kind of interesting that they're doing it this way. But then you're like, well, Pam, sitting right in front of you are the handles. What are we going to do with the handles? And you're absolutely right. So at this point, think about where do we want the handles? On the top of the bag would be convenient. And they will tell you down at the bottom, you want it basically 2 inches away from the seam. Okay. So we're going to take and
You need a ruler?
yep, I got one. It's the magic drawer. It always has what you need. All right. All right, so now at this point, we're looking 2 inches over, and we're going to just basically place it inside. So I'm going to put a pin at where my 2 inches are. And you want to make sure you put your handle down sufficiently. Like they give you a suggestion in the pattern, 3/4 of an inch. You know, you just want it down enough. Now, biggest thing to this is the handle that you're using. I am pinning it on, in this case, the green. So the first side is done on the green. It would be really convenient if you put the other side of the handle also on the green.
Okay.
I have actually in the past, you've gotten so excited you're almost done, and then you go and you put it on the other side, and then you have a lovely something. But it's not quite what we had in mind. All right, so I'm also going to make sure that I am not twisting my handle. Now, easiest way to do that is this. Okay, I put my finger on the inside bit, and I keep my finger on that same side, coming all the way around, and then that's the inside. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing. From the seam, we're going to come 2 inches in. Just double checking. Looks good. And we're going to slip this in. So again, I'm about 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to put some of my clips back in, so I'm good. Okay, now we have the handle done for one side. Now, how do we do it for the other? Very simple. We're going to turn it around, and we're going to use the first one for our pattern. So, at this point, you could have, these are the big decisions you'll have. Okay, you see how one of the tops, my handles match? I don't want to do. I'm going to put the purple on the other side. All right, so like I said, these big decisions All right, I line this up about 3/4, and can you see how I am making sure that it lines up with the other one? So I'm going to put my pin in. All right, going to do the same thing, making sure that everything's laying flat. So remember, inside edge. Keep my finger on it. It's not twisting in any way. And then I'm going to bring this down and around. Place it inside. I'm just using my other handle as a pattern. And voila. All right, hold it up. Look at that. That's going to be cute. All right, so how is this going to work? This is going to work, I find, easiest if I use my open arm on my machine. So, when we stitch around it, they recommend stitching around it twice to give it some strength. So we're going to start at a side seam, and I'm going to line it up. So basically I am on the inside edge of the foot. Okay, so take a look. So this is what I'm looking at here. You'll see how that,
Hold on for a second. Good.
right there, and that's where the fabric is running against. Okay? So watch for the, make sure your handles are still flat. And you want to make sure that your edges are lined up. That's why they want you to stitch it twice. Because I don't know about you, but I tend to put a lot of books and things in my bags. I really do test the tensile strength of my fabric. All right, line that up. Okay, coming around to the other side. Okay, coming around to where I started. So now at this point, I'm going to just cut my threads, and I'm going to move it over. And I'm going to line up edge of the foot to the edge of the material at this point. Again, just giving myself a visual. And guess what? We're going to do it one more time. And that way we have it all nice and stitched.
And essentially, you've double stitched your handles too.
You've double stitched your handles. Now, it's also nice if you ever get where your handles on your bags are getting kind of not so good anymore. If you kind of do it this way, you can unpick and re-put your handles in. So webbing handles maybe, or something like that. Just kind of a fun way of doing it. All right, I'm coming back to the other side. I'm doing my back stitch, and I cut. And guess what? I have a bag done. I'll trim it up, and look at that. Ready to rumble.
Beautiful.
That is what I call ready to wear. All right, you make it and you wear it. All right. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.